What if the path to inner peace doesn't start with positive thinking? Our culture sells happiness as a product, telling us to ignore negativity. But what if this constant pressure to be happy is actually preventing you from finding real resilience? This is a journey into a radical idea, backed by history's greatest thinkers. That true, unshakable peace is found not by avoiding life's hard truths, but by embracing them head-on. Let's explore how it works. We begin with a simple, unsettling premise. Your pessimism is justified. Life is, in many fundamental ways, a struggle. It's defined by moments of pain, loss, economic uncertainty, and a constant, nagging feeling that something is missing or broken. You are not defective for feeling this way. You are not a failure for finding it hard to just be happy. In fact, your refusal to accept easy answers, to just put on a happy face, is the very first step toward a deeper kind of wisdom. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most famously profound pessimists, framed it this way. He saw suffering not as an accident, but as essential to the fabric of life, suggesting that every person carries its perennial source within themselves. This isn't meant to be depressing, it's meant to be liberating. Because once we stop fighting the fundamental nature of reality, we can finally start working with it. Our culture treats pessimism as a disease to be cured, a personal failing. But what if it's actually a diagnostic tool? A sign that you are seeing the world with unflinching, painful clarity. The problem isn't that you see the negative. The problem is that you've been taught this insight leads only to despair. The philosophers we'll meet today saw something else entirely. They saw that this clear-eyed view of reality is the necessary foundation upon which true, unshakable peace is built. It's a peace that doesn't shatter the first time life gets hard, because it was forged in the full acknowledgement that life will be hard. So, forget what you've been told about blind optimism. Together, we are about to redefine it. Not as wishful thinking, but as the quiet confidence in your ability to endure absolutely anything. This is the journey from pessimism to peace.
The weight of pessimism, the tyranny of the will.
To understand the path out, we must first understand the landscape we inhabit. Why does life so often feel like an exhausting, unwinnable marathon? The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer offered one of the most compelling and chilling explanations ever conceived. He argued that the entire universe, and every living thing in it, is driven by a blind, irrational, and ceaseless force he called the will. Imagine the will as a kind of cosmic hunger, a raw, directionless energy. It has no ultimate goal, no purpose, no end point. Its only nature is to strive, to want, to crave, endlessly. And you, in Schopenhauer's view, are a direct manifestation of this will. Your desires, your ambitions, your fears, they are the will operating through you. You want a promotion. You want a relationship. You want the new iPhone. You want recognition from your peers. You get what you want, and for a fleeting moment, there is satisfaction. A brief silence, but it never lasts. The specific desire is quieted, but the underlying will is not. It immediately finds a new object, a new thing to crave. The promotion is achieved, and now you want a bigger office and a higher salary. The relationship is secured, and now you worry constantly about losing it. Schopenhauer famously described human life as swinging like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom. Let's break that down, because it's a diagnosis of our modern condition. The pain is the state of wanting, of striving, of not having. This is our default condition, the background hum of dissatisfaction. The boredom is the hollow emptiness that sets in once a desire is fulfilled. That disorienting, is this all there is? Feeling that arrives just before the next desire rises to take its place. In this view, happiness as a permanent state is an illusion. What we call happiness is merely the temporary absence of pain, a brief pause in the relentless, exhausting striving of the will. This sounds bleak, but look at your own life with radical honesty. How much of your mental energy is spent chasing the next thing on your list? How quickly does the shine of a new purchase, a new achievement, or a new experience wear off? How often do you find yourself thinking, if I just get this, then I'll be happy, only to find the goalposts have moved the moment you arrive? This is the cycle Schopenhauer identified. It is the engine of suffering, the source of the hedonic treadmill we all find ourselves on. We are, in this view, like donkeys chasing a carrot on a stick, forever moving forward, but never, ever reaching the prize. This is not a personal failure. It is the universal condition of a life governed by this driving, wanting will. We suffer because we are designed to want, and because our wanting is infinite, our potential for suffering can also feel infinite. This pessimistic diagnosis is crucial because it depersonalizes our pain. The constant dissatisfaction you feel isn't a sign that you're doing life wrong. It isn't proof that you're ungrateful. It's a sign that you are a living being, animated by a restless and universal energy. Recognizing this is the first step toward freedom. It allows you to stop blaming yourself for feeling unfulfilled and instead, to look at the mechanism of your own consciousness with a kind of detached curiosity. You can observe the wanting and the striving without being completely consumed by it. This is the bedrock of our journey. We are not trying to deny the existence of this cosmic treadmill. We are acknowledging its existence, understanding its mechanics, and preparing to find a way to step off it, even if only for a few moments at a time. The weight of pessimism comes from believing you are alone in this struggle. The peace begins when you realize it is a shared, fundamental human condition.
The turning point, the unexpected wisdom of darkness.
If we stop at Schopenhauer's diagnosis, the only logical conclusion is despair. If life is an endless cycle of painful striving and fleeting satisfaction, what's the point? But this is where our philosophical journey takes its crucial turn. The great pessimistic thinkers were not simply architects of gloom. They were cartographers of suffering. They drew a detailed map of the territory of pain so that others could find a way through it. They understood a timeless truth that we study closely here. You cannot find a solution until you have unflinchingly defined the problem. The turning point lies in a profound shift of perspective. What if the goal isn't to defeat suffering, but to change our relationship to it? What if peace is found not by winning the game of life, but by realizing you can choose not to play by its old rules? This is where we bring in two other powerful traditions, Stoicism and Buddhism. At first glance, they might seem worlds away from Schopenhauer's German metaphysics, but they all converge on a single, revolutionary idea. Our internal state does not have to be a slave to our external circumstances or our internal cravings. The Stoics, philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, were supreme pragmatists of the mind. They looked at the chaos of their world, at plagues, wars, political treachery, and personal loss, and asked a simple, powerful question. In a world where so much is outside of our power, where can we find stability and peace? Their answer became one of the most powerful mental models ever devised, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, who was born a slave and later became a revered teacher, said it best. Some things are within our control and some things are not. Within our control are our judgments, our intentions, our values, our responses. Outside our control is almost everything else: our reputation, our health, the economy, how others behave. Much of our suffering, the Stoics argued, comes from a simple error: trying to control what we cannot and neglecting the one thing we can. Simultaneously, halfway across the world, another great tradition was being born from a similar insight. Prince Siddhartha, who would become the Buddha, was shielded from all suffering until, as a young man, he witnessed the inescapable realities of sickness, old age, and death. This led him to the conclusion that suffering, or dukkha, is an intrinsic part of life. This is the first noble truth. an observation as stark and pessimistic as any of Schopenhauer's. But like the Stoics, the Buddha did not stop there. He diagnosed the cause of this suffering: craving, attachment, and aversion, our relentless desire for things to be different than they are. And most importantly, he offered a path to the cessation of this suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide to training the mind. Here is the turning point, the hinge upon which our entire journey swings. Schopenhauer shows us the problem, a life of endless, painful strivings driven by a blind will. The Stoics give us the principle: focus only on what you can control, your own mind. Buddhism provides the practice, a systematic way to train that mind to let go of the cravings that cause our suffering. These are not philosophies of naive optimism. They start by saying, yes, the world is full of pain. Yes, your mind is a chaotic engine of desire. They validate our deepest anxieties, but they don't end there. They say, and here is what you can do about it. They offer a path not to a world without pain, but to a mind that can find peace amidst the pain. This is the unexpected wisdom of darkness. The journey now moves from diagnosis to action.
Key 1. Embracing the inevitable, the Schopenhauer and Stoic path.
The first key to unlocking this new form of peace is the radical act of surrender. Not surrender as in giving up, but as in ceasing our futile and exhausting war against reality. This is where Schopenhauer's profound insight and the Stoics' daily discipline meet. Let's return to Schopenhauer's will. This relentless striving creates a constant state of friction between our desires and the world as it is. We want perfect health, but our bodies age and get sick. We want financial security, but the economy falters. We want a relationship to be easy, but people are complex. Each of these moments where our wants collide with reality is a moment of suffering. Schopenhauer saw a few paths to temporary relief from this, like losing yourself in art or through deep selfless compassion for others. But the most profound was a conscious choice to quiet the ego and reduce its endless, selfish desires. This is where the Stoics provide the practical, day-to-day operating system. The Stoic looks at a difficult situation and immediately applies the dichotomy of control. They draw a line in the sand of their mind. On one side, everything they cannot control. On the other, the few precious things they can. Let's use a modern example. You are passed over for a promotion you desperately wanted and worked hard for. The untrained mind is flooded with suffering. This is so unfair. My boss is an idiot. My career is ruined. I'm a total failure. This is a painful cascade of judgments aimed at things firmly outside of your control. The Stoic in training pauses. They take a breath, and they perform the sorting. What is not within my control? The final decision made by my boss's personal opinion or bias. The fact that my coworker got the job instead. The company's restructuring plan. Wasting mental and emotional energy on these things is, to a Stoic, a form of self-inflicted torture. It's as logical as screaming at the rain to stop. What is within my control? My interpretation of this event. I can see it as a catastrophe that proves my worthlessness, or I can see it as a data point, feedback. My actions moving forward. I can schedule a meeting to professionally ask for feedback. I can identify areas for skill improvement. I can update my resume and explore other opportunities, both inside and outside the company. My emotional response. I can acknowledge the sting of disappointment, but choose not to let it curdle into bitterness or resentment. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's about distinguishing between the initial, clean pain of a feeling, disappointment, sadness, and the secondary, dirty suffering that comes from the stories we tell ourselves about that feeling. This means I'll never succeed. The Stoics teach us to focus our energy exclusively on our chosen responses. As the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in his private journal, "You have power over your mind. not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This practice directly addresses Schopenhauer's pendulum. By reducing our attachment to outcomes we cannot control, we lessen the violent swing towards pain. The goal of life is no longer to get everything you want, which Schopenhauer rightly saw as impossible. The goal becomes to act with virtue, wisdom, and courage, regardless of the outcome. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Schopenhauer, added another, more potent layer to this he called amor fati, a love of fate. This isn't just bearing what happens, it's actively embracing it as a necessary and even beautiful part of your unique story. The promotion you didn't get? Amor fati. It is now the catalyst that will lead you somewhere new. The unexpected illness? Amor fati. It will teach you about the preciousness of health. When you can look at hardship, even tragedy, and say, "This is part of my path. I accept it. I will learn from it. I would not trade it." You have achieved a state of psychological invincibility. Embracing the inevitable doesn't mean being passive. It means directing your energy with surgical precision. Stop fighting unwinnable battles with reality. Accept what is. And then, from that place of calm, powerful acceptance, pour all of your effort into the one thing you truly command, the next choice you make. This is the first and perhaps most difficult key to peace. We've just covered some incredibly deep and challenging territory. If these ideas are resonating with you, if you're feeling that click of recognition that comes when a deep truth is spoken, then you understand the essence of what we do here at New Acropolis. We are an international school of philosophy, run entirely by volunteers, with branches all across the United States. We are a community of people dedicated not just to studying these ideas, but to living them. If this approach resonates with you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel to continue this journey with us. Now, let's turn to our second key.
Key 2. Finding meaning in the struggle, the Buddhist and Nietzschean path.
Accepting what we cannot change is the foundation, but it is not the entire structure. A house built only on a foundation is unlivable. The second key transforms this passive acceptance into a dynamic, creative force. The deliberate act of forging meaning in the midst of our suffering. Here, we turn to the practical wisdom of Buddhism and the defiant spirit of Friedrich Nietzsche. The Buddhist journey begins with the Four Noble Truths. The first two are profoundly pessimistic in their diagnosis. 1. There is suffering and dissatisfaction in life, and 2. Its primary cause is our craving, clinging, and attachment. But the third and fourth truths pivot to a message of profound practical hope. The cessation of suffering is possible, and there is a clear blueprint for how to achieve it, the Noble Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is not a set of beliefs to be memorized. It is an active training program for the mind, body, and spirit. It includes elements like right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, and right mindfulness. What's revolutionary here is the implication. Your suffering, your anxiety, your anger, these are not permanent fixtures of your personality. They are the product of untrained mental habits. And just as you can train your body at a gym, you can train your mind. Think of your mind like a garden. Left untended, it will be overrun by the weeds of anger, greed, and delusion. The Eightfold Path is the art of mental gardening, learning to see the weeds for what they are, and gently but persistently pulling them to make space to plant the seeds of compassion, wisdom, and peace. Does this with ferocious intensity. Friedrich Nietzsche, who lived a life of chronic illness, intense physical pain, and profound loneliness, rejected any philosophy that sought to simply eliminate suffering. For him, a life without suffering was a shallow, meaningless life. He believed that hardship, what he called resistance, is what forces us to grow. He famously wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." He argued that we shouldn't ask for an easy life, but for the strength to endure a difficult one. For Nietzsche, the point of suffering was not to endure it passively, but to use it as a raw material, like a sculptor's hammer that could forge a meaningless block of stone into a work of art. This brings us back to creating meaning. Thinkers like Nietzsche, and later the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps, came to the same conclusion. Life does not come with a prepackaged universal meaning. Our great human task is to create it. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl observed that the prisoners most likely to survive the unsurvivable were not the physically strongest, but those who held onto a sense of purpose, a meaning to their suffering. Whether it was the hope of seeing a loved one again, a piece of work they had to finish, or a lesson they had to share with the world, this purpose made the unbearable bearable. This is the second key in practice. When faced with inevitable suffering, you must ask the Nietzschean question, how can I use this? Instead of asking the victim's question, why is this happening to me? Ask the creator's question, what is this making possible for me? Can this failure teach me a humility I desperately needed? Can this loss open my heart to a deeper compassion for others who are also in pain? Can this struggle reveal a strength within me I never knew I possessed? By asking these questions, you transform yourself from a passive victim of fate into an active creator of meaning. You take the raw, chaotic data of suffering and weave it into the coherent, powerful narrative of your own growth. You are no longer just suffering, you are becoming. The struggle itself becomes part of your purpose.
Key 3. Forging a new mind, the psychological toolkit for realistic optimism.
We have accepted the inevitable and found a way to create meaning in the struggle. Our third and final key is intensely practical. It's about translating these profound philosophical insights into a psychological tool that can literally change how your brain responds to adversity. This is where ancient wisdom meets modern psychology, specifically in the groundbreaking work of Dr. Martin Seligman and learned optimism. Seligman's research began with its opposite, learned helplessness. In his famous experiments, he discovered that when people or animals are repeatedly exposed to negative situations they cannot control, they eventually give up trying to change their circumstances, even when an opportunity for escape is presented. This is the very essence of clinical pessimism, the deeply ingrained belief that whatever you do doesn't matter, so why bother? But Seligman noticed something crucial. Not everyone became helpless. Some individuals resisted, they kept trying. The difference, he discovered, was their explanatory style, the story they told themselves about why the bad event happened. Pessimists, he found, tend to explain negative events in a way that is permanent, pervasive, and personal. Permanent, this is going to last forever. I'll never find a partner. Pervasive, this is going to ruin everything. This one mistake at work means my entire career is over. Personal, this is all my fault. I'm the problem. I failed the test because I'm just stupid. Optimists, on the other hand, do the exact opposite. They explain negative events as temporary, specific, and non-personal. Temporary? This is a temporary setback. This feeling will pass. I haven't found a partner yet. Specific. This is just one isolated part of my life. I made a mistake on this specific project, but I'm good at other parts of my job. Non-personal. This was due to a variety of circumstances. I failed because the questions were unusually hard and I didn't get enough sleep. The crucial insight from Seligman's work is this: your explanatory style is a habit of thought. It is not a fixed part of your personality, and because it's a habit, it can be changed. You can learn to be an optimist. To do this, Seligman developed a simple, brilliant 5-step model, which we can call the ABCDE model. Let's walk through it. A is for adversity, the objective event. Example, I gave a presentation at work and it didn't go well. A few people looked bored. B is for belief, your immediate, automatic interpretation. Pessimistic belief. I'm a terrible public speaker. Everyone thinks I'm incompetent. I've ruined my reputation. I'm such a failure. C is for consequence, what you feel and do as a result of the belief. Consequence, I feel ashamed and anxious. I avoid my coworkers. I decide to never volunteer for a presentation again. Up to this point, this is the automatic, downward spiral of pessimism. But here is where we intervene, where we apply our philosophical training. D is for disputation. You actively and vigorously argue with your pessimistic belief, as a lawyer would in a courtroom. Disputation. Hold on, is it really true that I'm a total failure? Where is the evidence? The presentation wasn't great, but failure is too strong. Is it true that everyone thinks I'm incompetent? I'm projecting my own insecurity onto them. A few people looked bored, but others were nodding along. What are some other, less personal explanations? Maybe the meeting was scheduled right after lunch. Maybe they had a stressful morning. You look for evidence that contradicts the catastrophic belief. E is for energization, the outcome of a successful disputation. Energization. After challenging the negative, distorted thoughts, I feel a shift. The shame and anxiety lessen. I'm still disappointed, but not devastated. I feel motivated to take a public speaking course, or to ask a trusted colleague for specific feedback. I feel empowered, not helpless. This ABCDE model is the practical application of everything we've discussed. The disputation phase is applied Stoicism, forcefully separating objective events from your subjective, often harmful judgments. It is the Buddhist practice of right effort, actively challenging unwholesome thoughts and replacing them with more realistic, wholesome ones. It is the Nietzschean will to power turned inward, wrestling your own mind into a state of strength. By consistently practicing this, you physically strengthen the neural pathways for optimism. You're literally forging a new mind. This is the ultimate empowerment. Peace is not something that just happens to you. It is something you build, one disciplined thought at a time. We began this journey by making a pact, to look at the world honestly, to acknowledge that it is filled with pain and suffering. We have walked a path illuminated by Schopenhauer's brutal honesty, the Stoics' pragmatic discipline, Buddhism's mindful training, and Nietzsche's defiant self-creation. We have seen that the journey from pessimism to peace is not a journey from darkness into a false, fragile light, but a journey of learning to navigate the darkness with wisdom and a torch of your own making. Let us recap the 3 keys we have unlocked on this path. First, we learned to embrace the inevitable. Using the Stoic dichotomy of control, we cease our exhausting war with reality. We stop screaming at the rain, and instead focus our energy only on what is within our power, our own choices and judgments. Second, we learned to find meaning in the struggle. Guided by Buddhism and Nietzsche, we transformed suffering from a meaningless burden into a powerful catalyst for growth. We stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "How can I use this?" And third, we learned to forge a new mind. With the psychological toolkit of learned optimism and the ABCDE method, we gained the power to actively dispute our negative beliefs and systematically cultivate a resilient, realistic optimism. The peace we have been seeking is not a fragile thing, dependent on sunny days and good fortune. It is an unshakable inner fortress, built on the bedrock of accepted reality, fortified by a deep sense of purpose, and garrisoned by a disciplined, well-trained mind. It is a peace that says, life is hard, and I have the strength to meet it. Life can be painful, and I can use that pain to grow. My own mind can be a source of immense suffering, and I have the tools to make it my greatest source of peace. This is the ultimate paradox of the wise. The path to the most resilient form of optimism begins with a full and fearless embrace of pessimism. Stop running from the harsh truths of the world. Turn and face them. For in that acceptance, you will not find despair. You will find your power. You will find your freedom. You will find peace. If this journey has sparked something within you, the conversation doesn't have to end here. Share your own experiences with these ideas in the comments below. Which of these 3 keys resonated most powerfully with you? As a community of philosophical explorers, we continue to learn from one another by sharing our insights and our struggles. And if you want to continue exploring these profound questions of how to live a better life, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for walking this path with me.